Hello my lovely friends and welcome to another video. Today we are starting a short Healthy Kids series where I'll be talking a bit about transitioning your little ones onto a more health promoting whole plant food diet. When I first met Levi and his incredible babies, they were 3 and 5 years old, and I immediately decided that my role in their life would be to cram as many vegetables into their precious little faces as their parents would allow me to. I have succeeded. It wasn't necessarily easy between coordinating my efforts with Levi and trying not to be crazy Aunt Lily and dealing with the brown rice tears and getting way too familiar with the kale again faces. It was a challenge, for real, but after a lot of consistency, compassion, and education, these two girls are willing to try any crazy green concoction that I put in front of them, and they have grown to appreciate the way healthy, nutritious food tastes and how it makes their bodies feel. If you are stoked about this topic, please consider hitting the thumbs up button and consider subscribing as well so you can stay up to date with my videos. Alright, let's get started. A lot of kids have been conditioned to eat kid food like fish sticks, chicken nuggets, french fries that are covered in sweet and salty ketchup, pizza, macaroni and cheese, and basically the equation for kids food is little to no fiber, lots of fat, tons of salt, plenty of sugar, and extra points if you smother it in cheese. We just make sure that their little brains get a nice dopamine buzz, so mealtimes are easy and argument-free. We've raised these little addicts, and we have taught them that acting like a petulant monster is the most effective way to override adult decisions. So contemplating a major dietary change is understandably a stressful idea. But let's get real for a minute. If you've educated yourself on the long-term impacts of eating the type of food we regularly feed to our kids, you will be well aware that diseases like heart disease and many forms of cancer can and are seeded in our childhoods. And if you've learned anything about the importance of gut health, you'll be well aware that what we eat matters and the consequences of our choices ripple across lifetimes and generations. And since most of the parents I meet at least claim to want the best for their children, it only makes sense that we would feed our kids well and teach them the importance of empowerment and self-love through making responsible, reasonable dietary choices. So here are some tried and tested tips for getting your kids on a great dietary path. Absolutely vital is education, and by all means, don't leave nutritional education to the schools, whose curriculum is literally created and paid for by meat and dairy affiliates. They want to create young, lifelong consumers. In my substantial experience as a nanny and kind of like quasi-step-parent, kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. They also have stellar bullshit detectors, and if they get the feeling that you're talking down to them, withholding information, or straight up lying, they will act out in protest. Again, as a longtime nanny, quasi-step-parent, and reluctant auntie to my peers' heinously out of control spawn, I have seen it happen a million times. I've also witnessed how kids of virtually all ages respond to being told the truth and firmly yet respectfully reasoned with. With my unofficial stepdaughters, I started teaching them about human anatomy and physiology when they were as young as 3 years old. It doesn't have to be complicated, just simple associations like your liver cleans your blood, your kidneys make you pee, your heart moves your blood, your stomach digests food, your intestines absorb nutrients for your blood to carry, and they learn very, very quickly. Once they know some basics, they can understand simple reasoning like what we eat is absorbed into our blood. If it's clean, nutritious food, that helps your body to be healthy. If it's dirty or unhealthy food, your body won't have the nutrients it needs to be healthy. I've also used this very basic technique to explain processes like dehydration and the importance of drinking water. The kids get it for the most part, and they do want to be healthy because we've explained to them that good health is not guaranteed. as they have seen with their friends and family. And that the most important factors affecting health are largely within our own control. What we choose to eat and drink, whether or not we choose to exercise, how early we get ourselves to bed, those kinds of things. And of course, it's vitally important to make sure that your kids know and feel that they'll be loved and accepted regardless of the choices that they make about food. And by no means do overall responsible choices imply that we never partake of junk food, but I believe it's equally important that they understand why and how they are responsible for their own health. Also very important in switching your kids over to a more health-promoting diet is to lead by example. What you do teaches your kids what's natural and responsible behavior. Eating a family-sized barrel of Utz cheese balls on the couch, grabbing a candy bar at the grocery store checkout, or getting your daily $6 Starbucks sugar bomb normalizes this behavior for your kids. Equally as important is how you respond to new or healthy foods. It's not like you have to totally fake it, but if you're making a big deal about how something tastes weird or it's slimy or whatever, your kids will be a lot less likely to take to it. On the flip side, if your kids see you taking the time to make sure that you eat a healthy breakfast in the morning, if they see you prioritizing intake of whole grains, beans, fresh fruit, and lots of vegetables, they'll see that it can be done, that it is important, and that it's normal. Something that I found really helpful when we were transitioning the kids over to a more health-promoting diet was to recreate their old favorite meals. I know for a fact that the macaroni and cheese that I make tastes different from the boxed mac and cheese that they've been eating since toddlerhood. It'll never be an exact replacement, but the look and the texture is pretty comparable. And to be honest, my experience with most kids is that they are perfectly willing to accept slight flavor distortions when you explain to them how this mac and cheese is actually good for their body, because the cheese sauce is made from vegetables and spices instead of bacterially congealed cow lactation. Plant-based, fiber-rich versions of most foods can be pretty easily created with some practice, and some of my favorites will be listed in the next video in the series. Very important when you're transitioning your kids to a healthier diet is to make firm decisions. One way a lot of parents undermine themselves is by changing their minds and caving to the demands of their misbehaved kids. I've been having a conversation with my friend, and her 5-year-old will walk up, demand something, and then hit her in the face if she doesn't comply. And I definitely don't blame the kid for this. But anyway, a lot of kids are really fussy about what they want, especially what they want to eat. And trust me, I have experienced the emotional outbursts, the tears, the slumped bodies in the dining room chairs. But I tell you now, give them the food, tell them that your expectation is that they eat it. And if they don't, it'll be on the table for their next meal. They're not getting Fruit Loops instead. You're not gonna break down and cook them chicken nuggets. They're gonna do their best to eat the food that they've been given. You can explain to them in as non-condescending a way as possible how the food is good for their body. Have a family discussion about how life isn't always easy and that the things we have to do to bring ourselves success are rarely easy or delightful. Ask them to think of other times when they've done hard stuff in order to better themselves, like learning how to read or waking up early to go to school. Tell them that you know that they are capable of nourishing their bodies, and remind them that they have your support if they want to reasonably tell you what they do and don't like, so that you can do your best to make meals in the future that can strike a balance between healthy and palatable for them. Make it really clear that you all are a team working together towards their success. Which brings us to another important point. When you're transitioning kids, you have to make the food palatable. I know that when we're learning how to cook new, healthy foods, not every meal turns out awesome. I've tried some new recipes and shamefully served it to a less than impressed family. We have all been there, and I'm sure I will be there again. But we gotta try. And it's especially important during the transition period that you respect that taste buds take some time to change. And remember that you can kind of manipulate this change. Say you want to introduce more vegetables into your diet, but your kids dry heave anytime they're within 10 feet of vegetables. Great. no problem. It can really help to associate the vegetable flavor with foods that they already love. This is one of my best tricks. I will cook something delicious like spaghetti sauce or a big pot of mellow curry, which is salty and rich and creamy, and the kids love it. And then I'll add in more finely chopped vegetables than you ever thought was practical, including kale. Tons of kale, because it wilts. And bingo, all of a sudden your kids are eating kale and vegetables and they don't even notice. After they learn to enjoy these foods when it's mixed in with their old favorites, their taste buds will actually begin to associate those delicious tastes with vegetables, with kale, and they'll be more likely to enjoy veggies or kale and other less disguised dishes. This can be done with virtually any food. You just have to flavor them in a way that your kids can initially stomach. So, when you're transitioning you or your kids, I suggest not worrying too much about adding salt or a little bit of refined sugar to foods to make them really enjoyable. Once the new healthy foods are accepted, then you can start paying a little bit more attention to stuff like not giving your kids 5 grams of sodium a day, or weaning them off of the baby crack, aka refined sugar. And I promise you, if you do it slowly, they won't really notice. Another important tip that many parents would rather hang themselves than do is to cook and shop with your kids. Yes, I know. Take them to the store and let them choose some new foods to try, or help them pick out their old favorites. You can teach them how to shop for nutritious, fresh produce. I am truly shocked by how many adults don't know how to choose their food, and it is a huge impediment to providing yourself a healthy diet. Equally as important is to teach them how to interpret nutrition and ingredient labels so that they can be empowered to make good choices for themselves. Focus on picking out nutritional values like trans fat, saturated fat, cholesterol, refined sugar, and fiber. A surprisingly fun activity that we've done with the girls on many occasions is to choose 2 different types of foods, one from a standard Western diet and the other from a more whole food, plant-based diet, and compare the 2 nutritionally. For this, we usually use the free service Cronometer, and we plug in the, say, like a normal breakfast made up of 2 eggs and toast with some jam, and compare that to their current favorite breakfast, which is rolled oats with fruit. We look at amounts of fat, cholesterol, refined sugar, and fiber. They were really surprised by the difference between the 2, and they learned a lot in that moment about how important their choices are. We also did a fun art project with them where we drew out a nutritional label and we color-coded it. We chose one color and colored in items that ideally have a low value, like, say, fat or saturated fat, and then we used a different color to color in values that ideally have a higher value, such as fiber. Kids really do love learning when it's engaging like that, and they also love it when they can show you their new skills and get praised for their abilities. And I am aware of how freaking inconvenient it is to slow down your dinner prep time by having to teach and monitor a miniature, uncoordinated human how to prepare food, but the effort does pay off. Not only do they become much more helpful and efficient in the kitchen, but they also feel a lot more empowered because they can cook their own food. And once you get to the dinner table, the kid that picked, washed, and prepared that icky kale salad and weird quinoa pilaf is a lot more likely to finish their first helping and go back for seconds. My next tip is to provide healthy treats. At the end of the day, kids are kids, and treating ourselves with food is a huge part of humanity, of being human. I also want to note quickly here that when you're talking to kids about this type of thing, it's really important not to focus on rigid rules that create good and bad foods, because that is a great way to manifest eating disorders in your children. When we talk to the girls about food, I am really careful to verbally tell them there's no such thing as good or bad foods, but certain foods are an investment in improving your health, and others aren't. As long as you're making healthful choices often, it is fine to indulge from time to time. To further explain this to them, we talk about food versus treats. Food is food. It supports your health. It gives you energy. It should be eaten many times a day until you're fully satisfied. Treats are just that. They are treats. They are delicious and perhaps not so healthy, which is why it's wise to be mindful about how often we are partaking. So food all day, every day. Treats more infrequently. Obviously, there are tons of options if you are wanting vegan junk food, like plant-based ice creams, pastries, etc., and those are totally fine to indulge in from time to time as treats, if that's what you're into. And while I know that some people equate this with neglectful child abuse, if dessert is a tradition in your family, there is nothing wrong with having fruit for dessert. It will serve your kids well for them to understand how much more delicious treats taste when they don't come with a sugar crash, when they don't cause impaired digestion or guilt over weight gain, which I believe is unfortunately unavoidable in our weight-obsessed society. I also think it's a valuable lesson for kids to learn to reward themselves and celebrate their accomplishments and milestones in ways that aren't specifically food or junk food focused. We can be proud and celebrate our kids even if we don't go to Baskin-Robbins. One-on-one time with the family or parents, getting to play at the park, or adopting 23 puppies are all totally legitimate and awesome ways to let your kids know that you're proud of them without involving congealed, baby crack-laced, overpriced dairy products. Puppy adoption is my favorite. Okay, so that was a lot. You did well. If you want some more great tips and some first-hand experience from a vegan mom who went through vegan pregnancy and is raising vegan babies, I really recommend checking out Ellen Fisher's page and specifically watch this video that I'm gonna link up there and in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate it, and I would love it if you would rate and share this video with someone who would find it informative and useful. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I encourage you to hit the little bell so you will actually be informed when I upload new videos. Thank you again, and until next time, make better choices for yourself. No one else is going to do it for you, and take really, really good care. I will see you in my next video.